Here we go. I've gone ahead and I've put together a very basic application which is designed to read client information out of Salesforce, so name, work email, and mobile number, give you the ability to update this record and then write it back to Salesforce. It's a very simple application, but the whole idea is to show the process of deploying to Heroku, connecting to Salesforce, and seeing how long the overall process takes. So I think what we should do, I'll reset my timer here, and let's see how long this process takes. All right, so I'm going to go to my code base and deploy my code to Heroku. So if you haven't deployed to Heroku before, it's a very simple Git process. I'll just run through this. Not too worried about the message right now. And then git push Heroku main. I'd already previously set up the connection to the application. All right, so now it's going through the build process. You can get this same data out of the Heroku dashboard, which we'll have a look at a moment. So it's going through, installing dependencies, the build is successful, and it's doing the final setup. Because it's a very small app, this process should be relatively quick. And we're done. It's deployed. So if we head to our Heroku dashboard and I go to the activities, you can see the latest activities just now showing the deployment. And if I view the build log, it'll show me all the things that it went through in building the application, which is very useful in case there's any kind of bug in that regard. So in Heroku, we've now got the app running, and I can see that it's running on a web dyno, and I'd already installed the Heroku Postgres database. What we need to do now is add Heroku Connect so that we can actually communicate to Salesforce. So Heroku Connect is a bi-directional tool which reads and writes data from Salesforce, but what it does is it actually syncs it up with the Heroku Postgres database. So as a developer, you can do all of your data read and writes at the Postgres level. You don't have to deal with Salesforce APIs or anything like that. But let me show you. So we need to add in the element which is Heroku Connect. I'm going to use the free demo. And that has been provisioned. So I'm going to open it up to now run through the setup process. And we're going to connect it to the reinteractive Salesforce environment so I can access the data there. And you'll see in the database URL, it's already connected to the Heroku Postgres database. So that's the database it's going to sync the data with. The next item is the schema name. And this allows us to access that Salesforce data by accessing that schema in Postgres. Defaults to Salesforce. That's what I usually leave it as. So now it's going to initialize, provision the Heroku Connect, which environment you want to connect to, whether it's production or sandbox. I'm just going to use production for this demo, but if you're in staging, of course, you would use your sandbox. And now we're going to authorize the connection. So you need a valid Salesforce license. In this case, I'm going to use my own license. I'm going to log in. Verify. And there we go. So we're now connected to the reinteractive Salesforce environment, but there's no data being synced at the moment because we need to go ahead and map what data, because it doesn't just sync everything. Usually you have a certain number of rows, records that you can sync under your license. So the way we do this is we go to our mappings and we create a new mapping. And what we're able to map to are different objects within Salesforce, whether it's the accounts object, the contact object, and so on. So I want the contact object. So the contact object is now syncing. And the next thing we need to do is sync the actual fields we want access to. So again, it limits the data it pulls in, which is quite useful for us. So I want the email field I want the first name field, I want the last name field, and I want the mobile phone field. Now you'll see up here that if you want to write back to Salesforce, you need to select that. So right now it would be read only. In my case, I do want to write back. The other thing to be aware of is the polling frequency. By default, it polls Salesforce every 10 minutes. You can use accelerated polling, which I believe polls every minute or so. Depending on what you're doing, accelerated polling is often useful, especially if you're dealing in a live environment where you want the data, any data updated in your mobile or web app to sync to Salesforce very quickly. So I'm going to hit save. And what's going to happen here is it's going to start syncing and building up all the data in the Postgres database. So it's seen that in the reinteractive contact object, there's 7,252 records. It's now going to load up all of those rows into the database. So I'm just going to pause while that happens. That'll take a couple of minutes. That sync's now completed, so you can see the Salesforce rows match the database rows. So if we go back to Heroku dashboard, I'm now going to open up the app I've got running on Heroku. And you'll see now it's pulling in my details. Now, the way I've written the code is I've made it just pull my record details. But of course, in a live app, it would pull the record of a customer or a particular user and so forth. So that's working. That if I go to Salesforce, you'll see that matches my email address and that matches my mobile number. Now, the final piece is I want to change my mobile number. So from 000 at the end, we'll change it to 999. We'll submit that, and the record has updated successfully. If I go to Heroku Connect, so that's going to take, well, it's actually polling, so it might actually do that right now. But if I go to Explorer, and in Explorer I can search for Kane Hooper. There's two records, but I believe it's this one. You can see here that there was successful action that occurred. This is just now, and it's updated the mobile number. So where this is indicating that it's happened within the Postgres database. If you go to data, it'll actually then compare the Postgres database to Salesforce. And I can see that the mobile number in both is now synced. So the polling for that was very quick. If we head into Salesforce and I refresh this page, you can see that the mobile number is updated. So in this case, it was a very quick sync. Now, total time, here we go, 9 minutes. So from starting the deployment of the app to provisioning Heroku Connect to actually syncing data and writing to Salesforce, the whole process was 9 minutes. And the reason for that is because Heroku Connect gives us the ability to just sync directly with the database. So if you know SQL, you can see what I'm doing here. I'm selecting all of the records from the Salesforce schema and the contact table where the first name and the last name is Kane Hooper. So as a developer, I'm using the tools I'm already familiar with. Now, I don't usually write in SQL. I usually use the object relational mapping when I'm working my database, but I just wanted to show that this behind the scenes is just using SQL to deal with the Postgres database. We always use Heroku Connect when we're working with Salesforce applications. It's fast to use. It's easy to teach a developer. If a developer has never worked with it before, we've got them up and running within about an hour, and they know exactly how to work with it. So go ahead and have fun with Heroku. If you're looking to sync with your Salesforce environment, you absolutely want to look at Heroku Connect as your solution, because the speed in terms of development time, so then the cost of development is significantly improved, and I just wouldn't work without it anymore. All right, guys, thanks very much.